Welcome to Church Alive's broadcast, Stay Alive with Church Alive. My name is Stacy Ellis, and I'm standing in for Bishop Dr. Burkett, who's your regular host. Bishop Dr. Timothy Burkett, president of Church Alive Community Development Corporation and the pastor of Church Alive Community Church, founded Church Alive on a holistic approach to the gospel. It's a philosophy that believes the church should not just address belief, it should address spiritual, physical, mental, and financial needs of the community. As many of you know who are familiar with Church Alive, they've had employment ministry, food distribution, Bible study, counseling, and an immigration ministry. It's always addressed the current issues of the day. And this series that you're watching now is about the church and the vaccine. We bring you voices and opinions of people who have experienced COVID-19 in a variety of ways and have experienced being vaccinated. Our guest will be sharing how this experience affected their lives. I'd like to introduce you to Nancy and Demetrio Cernum. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good morning.
Can you tell us something about your experience getting the vaccine?
Okay. You want to speak about it first?
Okay, so my experience, I didn't have a real bad case of COVID. I had it back in March of last year, and there was 3 or 4 days of fever and lost the taste and smell. My main concern was being that we were together in my son's house, the family. So my main concern was, not to infect the rest of the family, but it was very worrisome because of the news media, projecting this, doomsday scenario that so many people were dying from this virus. I didn't think I got it too bad. So in my case, it wasn't as bad as other people, but I was very concerned because I thought I could infect some other of my family members.
All right, so with the vaccine?
With the vaccine, once the vaccine came out, I was lucky. I called the hospital and somebody has canceled. So I got my first shot in January. Then I got my second shot in February. And up to this day, I have no issue with the vaccine. I'm very happy with it. And I feel more confidence to be outside and to be living more or less in a normal way because I feel that the vaccine has protected me. And I feel more comfortable being next to the family.
Right. Nancy, how was it? Yes. How was that experience for you? Knowing that there was a positive test result in the family. Was it both of you or just one of you?
Yeah, it was a little disconcerting because, the pandemic had just started. This was around Easter of last year. And we actually went upstate to my son who lives in a more, a less densely populated community, just outside of Warwick. And we stayed in the house with him, to avoid elevators and all that. We had our 2-year-old grandson with us and all of this. So we thought we were, being safe. Everything was fine. And then someone came to visit, the home. So, at that time there was, it was being emphasized that, just to stay with family members that you were normally with. And I tell you, so that one incident may have led to us, coming down with it. It was, for me, it was a little bit more long lived than Demetrio. I had some respiratory issues, was never hospitalized, thank goodness. We came back to the Bronx and just isolated in our home. So because it was more of a long haul situation, I was really grateful for the opportunity to get the vaccine in March. And I didn't hesitate to go and get it once it was available to me, because having experienced it, having seen all that was going on in New York and including with some people that we knew, I just felt that this was something I needed to do and people needed to do to keep safe and to keep those around us safe.
Did either of you experience any side effects from having the vaccine?
Well, I have a little bit of discomfort for the second shot, the day after. It wasn't nothing. I maybe had fever for half a day, and then after that, I was a little pain in the arm where I had the second shot. But beside that, there was no other issue.
Right. And I didn't really have any side effects that I can remember. Maybe just a little bit of tiredness or, but, I think also having, had a little more a long haul experience when I had the virus may have just made my antibodies more robust. So I really didn't experience anything.
How did you handle being distant from the rest of your family members?
For the house, the kids, and our future. My Shiro's day is never done. So let's save a little more now so we can create the retirement we want. A free 3-minute online chat can give us the personalized tips we need. Visit aceyourretirement.org.
I was asking how you handled contact with the other family members during the time you had to be isolated. How did you handle that?
Okay, well, when we initially got the, knew we were sick, my son had a separate room that we could quarantine in. So we did that. We, the girls, our granddaughters knew what to do, and why we were isolating. And luckily, they and my son did not, come down with the virus. So after we went home, it was easier to isolate. We did have my daughter and my grandson there. But, we were successful at isolation. It was difficult. Like, he has elderly parents and we couldn't go visit them, obviously. And we advised them to be very careful in terms of, having visitors because, their family likes to get together.
Yes.
But yeah, I think once the quarantine time was over, we still remained cautious. Like, I wore a mask in my home for a while because, I just wanted to make sure that everything was okay because my symptoms, had persisted a little longer. But, to be honest with you, Stacey, we don't really live that differently, now than we did back then. We still use masks when we're around family that we don't see often. When I go into a different setting, like a store or something, I'll use a double mask. But, in terms of family, yeah, that's how we dealt initially. And like I said, only with family that I see every day do I not wear a mask. If I go to visit somebody, I do.
Now, what advice would you give for people watching about wearing masks and about keeping their families safe?
Okay. You want to?
I think people should, first of all, listen to the medical doctor. Don't listen to their friends or neighbor, because
Social media.
Everybody has an opinion on social media, and half of those opinions are, not true. So you listen to your doctor, to the people that knows the science, and, think about not just yourself, but think about your family. If you have small children, you have elderly parents, don't think about I'm a Superman or Superwoman, but think about I have a family, I have a community, and I should protect them. Even if I don't like the mask too much, even if I have issue with the vaccine, or I tell people when they complain about the vaccine, is I ask them if they have children in this country. Most of the people in this country, before the child go to school, they get 5 or 6 vaccines that they have to in order to go to school. So when they talk about, I don't want the vaccine because the government's doing this and that, think about that. We use vaccine for everything in this country and nobody complains. So I don't see the issue complaining so much. And when it comes to the mask, like I say, use the mask if you have to, if you think you need it, and stay certain distance from people that you don't know in order to prevent, an infection or infecting somebody else.
Right. Yeah. And I would say, I agree with him. I think that social media and also just like the chains of communication that we have within certain communities, being Latinos, we're very aware of the resistance that a lot of our community has. And it's a difficult thing, but sadly, a lot of people's minds have been changed when a family member that they have get sick, especially people that don't live within a community that, where healthcare is immediately available. So let's say someone with me back in the Caribbean or in Central America, their family members, often get gravely ill and sadly die because of lack of access to healthcare. So this is what makes them turn the corner in terms of vaccines. I just want to mention that right now we're not in the city, we're in Louisiana. So, this is, it's a city, New Orleans is a city that has, a lot of information, a lot of access to vaccines and testing and all of this. But the Latino community here it's very, it's different. It's at a different phase than, back in New York. Back in New York, I think people are really seeing, that this is a necessary step. Over here, we were at a big church event, and the problem is, that this is being politicized, and it's also being, what's the word? Evangelized. It's, being put into the context of faith, and that's a very dangerous thing. I was watching a program the other day where somebody was talking about what is it? COVID cavers, like people who profess to be Christian, but ended up getting vaccines, without telling their community because it's not approved of. And, just the thought of that seems so dangerous to me. So,
well,
yeah.
this is one of the reasons why Bishop Burkett is doing this show, because he recognizes that it's become politicized, evangelized, all kinds of theories, conspiracy, and that's the purpose of having this series. It's unfortunate that First Lady Dingell from another church, she was to be on today. We had some technical difficulties, but she was really in a bad way. And she got the COVID before the vaccine was available. So there were lots of concern, lots of prayers, because she was on a ventilator. We hope to have her on next week. She's fine now, but you're absolutely right. And that's the purpose of this series of shows, to get people to understand there are varying degrees of COVID. There are different experiences, but to understand that the vaccine is not to harm people. I think one of the problems is that we eradicated so many diseases over the years. It's been a long time since anybody's had to get a vaccine other than kids in school or students going to college. And it's suddenly happening has made people come up with all kinds of craziness, accepting the fact that it's there to help them. So we're going to have another public service announcement, and then we'll be right back. Okay?
Okay.
My name is Reverend Dr. Timothy Burkett, and I'm the senior pastor of Church Alive Community Church. And I was asked a question by one of my fellow pastors, and he asked me, Reverend Burkett, how did you make the decision to take the vaccine? And I told him I went to God and I prayed. And I asked God to give me some direction. And he did. When I prayed to him, I thought he would give me an answer, but he didn't. He asked me a question. He said to me, Reverend Burkett, how important are you, the people that you serve and the people that love you? Based on that, I took the vaccine at 84 years old, and that was a miracle. And so I ask you the same question. How important are you to the people who love you and the people who you serve? Thank you.
My grandfather was a case in that study. He worked as a firefighter where the Tuskegee Airmen trained. He and I were phenomenally close. The syphilis study happened for 40 years. Penicillin was found to be the most effective treatment, but the men were denied the treatment. Interestingly enough, I've had someone tell me that they were concerned about getting the vaccine because of the syphilis study. And I always, try to educate or provide some information about what happened. But then I said, you're talking about something that happened to my family. And I've taken both of my vaccines. I'm doing this for them. Health is greater than wealth, and it's really up to us to take ownership of our health and this story.
The PSA you just saw is very relevant to a discovery I recently made. I did not know that the first vaccine against smallpox was brought to the colonists by an enslaved African named Onesimus. What happened was smallpox had also been in his country, and they had developed a way of vaccinating their tribe and family members from the vaccine. Then it was called vaccination because they literally made a cut. There were no needles then. So they would make a cut and insert just a drop of an infected person's either saliva, blood, whatever, and they would build up an immunity. And recently, the Boston Magazine has acknowledged him as saving the Northeast from a smallpox epidemic. I think, too, that history of medicine, history of diseases, people don't know it. And they don't know that indigenous people to various lands had various ways of dealing with it, including foods and herbs. So to get used to the idea of there being a substance input in you after so many years of having no pandemic, SARS was the last time we had a flu pandemic, and it was able to be under control. This, because of politics in China, because of a lot of things, was a delayed response. And I think people have developed all kinds of thoughts on the vaccine, on the virus. I've heard all kinds of conspiracy theories, but the bottom line is the science. Now, mentioning that, both nature, indigenous people, and also science, I happen to know that you two are co-founders of a farm in the Bronx. So you might want to share how you dealt with work during this period of time, because there are a lot of people who are stressful or stressed out about what they couldn't do. And you might want to elaborate on how you handled keeping things going while you were quarantined.
Okay, well, yeah. So, thanks to the marvels of technology that we're enjoying right now, we were able to do, to stay engaged in the farm and contribute, in, whatever we could, mostly behind the computer screen. So we were able to meet with farmers. We were able to make calls and put in orders and all of that. This was, after our recovery pretty much, but we were able to stay connected, which was very comforting for me and for Demetrio, and hopefully, was a support to the farm. I missed it very much. And I think one of the biggest therapies for me was, after we were out of the danger zone, to be able to go cautiously and visit the farm. It was a safe space. It was a space that signified health and healing and just a reconnection that I needed. So I felt very fortunate, as I think Demetrio did, to have it. It was also not just for myself. The farm was a place where other members could get away from crowded apartments, because that was, definitely a risk, to be living in multi-generational families and households, and be able to go there, keep the operations going, as we communicated with other members. So it was, I think it created a sense of collaboration and a sense of healing to be able to reach out and do things that way. And as soon as we could, we were back there and, cautiously reentering. And, I think that it had a lot to do with our recovery.
Yes.
Do you have any advice to people who are stressed out because they can't go into the office, or were out of the office so long they feel overwhelmed to catch up whatever kind of work they do? Could you give them some advice on just how to deal with that?
You want to say anything?
I think one of the things people should do is, first of all, think about themselves, take time for themselves, and find something that they have an interest in it, and spend some time, whether it's just walking in the park or just playing with the kids, or maybe reading a book, something that brings them kind of peace of mind. And don't think too much about the day-to-day obligation. Those will come and go, but you have to think about your mental health first and your physical being in order to be able to keep going for the future. So take time for yourself and, enjoy something that you do, or the family, and then the other thing will fall in place.
And how do you reconnect to work with that philosophy?
Yeah, I think reconnecting back to work is doing step by step. If you work in the office, some people, like my sister, she worked 3 days out of the house. She go to the office twice a week. And, that way she doesn't feel like it's not back to normal, but it's kind of getting there. And she spend time with the family. She have time for herself. And at the same time, she's still continuing doing the job because, at the end, we all had to do some kind of work in order to keep the society moving, the community, moving along and so on.
Right. And I think also relying on that cooperative network that we've had to develop at this time, so however you can re-engage with, we no longer do formal work. We're both retired, but, to be able to sustain a job, it depends on the flexibility, the viability of your company. I think also this is a time where people should think about work. Like, can you change that whole concept of work for yourself? Starting a business, creating a cooperative, with other people. I think when you take those steps out to the universe and start asking those questions, you'll be surprised at how many people are, in a similar state of mind and willing to collaborate and work together. So it's a time where you have to be open to change, I think, and that's a little scary because economically, especially in a place like New York, you don't want to be in a place of insecurity. I mean, that just creates further stress. But I think really just having an open dialogue and seeing what's possible with your workspace, and like Demetrio says, taking time for yourself. I also wanted to mention, Stacy, because you did talk about that farm, going to into our indigenous ways, into the world of plants to help us, in this, Latino people. The one thing I do commend in terms of our approach to this problem of COVID has been how to use our ancestral knowledge and our herbs and different ways of healing. And okay, that's not going to prevent COVID. That's not really going to cure you, but it will boost your immunity. So having that strong immunity, that immune system, feeling very proactive, right, in your health and your day-to-day living, will, I think, can only help you in terms of engaging with work or re-entering that workforce. So yeah, just taking care of yourself in every way. And prayer.
Yeah.
And yep.
That's definitely good advice. In fact, always with a disaster, there's a flip side, or something terrible like a pandemic. We remember when the air report, because everybody was inside, was clean air all over the world. So that gives people things to think about, and even possibly jobs in the industry to help stop pollution. Also, people reconnected with family in different ways. People learn more technology using Zoom, and Zoom just exploded. So always look for the silver lining, I say, and try to alleviate some of the stress. I agree with both of you that what Demetrio said about taking a little at a time to make you, yourself, and your family your priority. And also what Nancy said about having the ability to go out and enjoy some of nature just to take the edge off. So we're almost at the end of our show. We have 1 minute. What would each of you say, and I'll ask Nancy first, to people who are frightened of getting the vaccine, who are scared of other people and, isolating themselves, yet not doing anything to improve the situation or protect themselves? What would you tell them about being fearful to get the vaccine?
I would agree with Demetrio. Speak to your doctor. Some people don't have doctors. There are so many helplines right now. I think that our our chief medical officer in New York is a fantastic, welcoming person, and I see almost every day these PSAs. Everybody watches TV. Everybody, has that sort of common thread. So reach out, to your local health department. Talk to your neighbors that have gotten the vaccine. And part of that is opening up. Like in our community, like there are people who have gotten the vaccine, and they feel ashamed about talking about it. So we have to open that up. I commend people like Pastor Reverend Burkett for providing these opportunities to speak, and also for providing these information about where to go, mobile testing sites. As much as we can, providing those community resources, so that as you're going to the store, hey, there's the vaccine, van. If you have a question, you can go and ask somebody there, and they'll tell you in your own language. So
Okay.
I would say get out. Yeah. Wear your mask and get out there.
I'm getting the signal that we have to wrap it up. And
Okay.
thank you so much. It was good to see you both, and you had great advice. And I'm so glad that you were able to be guest on the show today. Thank you so much.
We appreciate
Thank you for having us.
We appreciate you, Stacy. Thank you, Bronson.